everyone, it's Carolyn and welcome back to Contemporary Mama. Today I'm doing another episode in my monthly freezer cooking series. I really hope that you guys have been enjoying these videos. I certainly have enjoyed creating this content, and having a freezer full of homemade food has been such a time saver for me. So today I'm going to be switching it up a little bit. I know when people think of freezer cooking, they mostly think of casseroles and crock pot meals, but there are so many other things that are freezer friendly. Pretty much anything is great frozen. There are very few items that you cannot freeze well. So I'm going to be switching it up and showing you some other things that work great for freezer cooking besides all those casseroles and crock pot meals that you see when you're searching on Pinterest. So let's get started. So I'm going to start by preparing a double batch of my favorite chocolate chip cookie dough recipe. I actually have an entire video dedicated to the 3 secrets that I use to create the perfect chocolate chip cookie. I'll make sure that I link that video for you up in the cards and down in the description box if you want to reference that for the rest of my secrets. But I'm just going to whip up the dough right now. I'll leave the instructions on the screen for you if you want to follow along. But then the real trick is how I freeze them. There are a few different ways that you can freeze cookie dough depending on you and your family and your lifestyle, how many cookies you want to prepare at the time, per time. So let me just make this dough and then I'll check back with you in a minute. So I have a huge double batch of chocolate chip cookie dough. I am going to save half to make cookies right now for my family. And then I'm going to put half of this in the freezer for another day when I want cookies, but just don't feel like getting out my mixer and whipping up a batch. All right, so like I said, I'm taking half of my dough and I'm going to be putting it in the freezer for another day. Now, depending on you and your family, you might want to do this a couple different ways. One way is that you could actually break up the dough into cookie-sized pieces. I would suggest placing it on a baking sheet and sticking it in your freezer so that they freeze individually. That way, if you want to pull out just 1 or 2 to bake at a time, you could absolutely do this. That's perfect if you live alone, or maybe you just live with one other person and you don't need a whole batch of cookies baking at once. But I have a family of 4. We also have family coming over to visit all the time, so a batch of cookies goes pretty fast in my house, so I'm just gonna freeze it all in one batch. So this right here is enough cookie dough for 1 batch. So what I like to do, this is just the way that my mom taught me, is to kind of just roll it into a little log and then wrap it up in a few layers of saran wrap. So I just kind of roll it up like a burrito and then tie off the ends. And then if you wanted to even do multiple batches of these, you could get all of your logs of cookie dough and then just place them in like 1 gallon size freezer bag, and it'll keep them super fresh in your freezer for however long you manage to keep it in there without pulling it out. So I would suggest pulling it out maybe the night before that you want to cook these so it can defrost in your refrigerator, and then you'll just bake them like you normally do. So these are already going to be super soft and chewy because of that cornstarch that we put in them. But my other secret to making a really thick chewy cookie is when you place them on the baking sheet to make them twice as high as they are wide. So this way they will bake and be really thick and just absolutely amazing. Good luck trying not to eat the whole batch. So these bake at 350. Depending on how big you make them, they could bake anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes. Mine definitely take 12 minutes. And then, yeah, just try not to devour them all. So next on the agenda, I'm going to be making a double batch of my favorite soup. This is a roasted red pepper and cauliflower soup that is so creamy and delicious, but it's also super healthy and doesn't actually include any cream at all. So the first step in this is to break up your head of cauliflower into florets. You could just dice this up in a knife, but I actually learned this trick recently that's pretty cool. If your cauliflower comes wrapped up in plastic like this, you can just kind of like slam it down and it will actually like break it up for you, and you can get out some of your aggression this way. So I'm just going to break this up into florets. I am going to wash it, obviously, and then I am going to be roasting these in the oven for about 25 minutes until they're cooked through. Once you've got your cauliflower in the oven, you can go ahead and dice up 2 medium-sized onions and 6 cloves of garlic. So my onion and garlic are all chopped up, so I am just going to add some olive oil into my big pot here, and I am going to add in all the chopped onion and the chopped garlic, and this is actually going to cook on medium low. So let's see here, and just cook these very slowly on medium low so the onions can get pretty caramelized. Once your onions are pretty well cooked, you can go ahead and add in 2 teaspoons of thyme and 2 teaspoons of paprika, as well as 8 cups of chicken stock. Now, the original recipe called for roasting your own red peppers. I have approximately 0 time to do that. I always use a jar of roasted red peppers and it comes out amazing. So I drained that, added in both jars of roasted red peppers as well as all of my roasted cauliflower, put on the cover and let this simmer for another 20 minutes. So my soup has been simmering away for about 20 minutes and it's ready to be blended up into that creamy, delicious goodness. So I have a stick blender. If you make a lot of pureed soups, it's totally worth it to get one of these. You can get them for like $30. But if you don't have one of these, no need to worry. Just scoop it about 2 cups at a time into your blender, blend it up, stick that in a bowl, and just keep repeating until all of your soup is blended. So my soup is all pureed. It looks so creamy and delicious. I just need to let this cool, and then once it's all cooled, I am going to be dividing it up into these little plastic containers. I got these at the Christmas tree shop. They were super cheap. But if you order like wonton soup from the Chinese restaurant, then just save those because they're pretty much the exact same size. But they are perfect for storing soup, and then you can just portion out, you know, however much you want, stick it in the freezer. Oops, I gotta blend up that little guy. Stick it in the freezer, and then I can just pull it out the night before if I know I'm having a busy day. I'm not gonna have time to make anything, and they're also great for bringing to lunch. Who doesn't like having like a nice hot bowl of soup on a cold winter's day? So I have a double batch here. It's gonna make a ton of portions. I'm so excited. I did want to mention before you go ahead and divide it up, you want to give it a taste and add salt and pepper to your liking. So the last freezer meal I'll be preparing is a sheet pan chicken fajitas. Now this is such an easy meal to whip up any night of the week, but it takes almost no extra time to double it, store one in a freezer bag, and then pull it out on a busy weeknight. All you have to do is take it out the night before, stick it in your refrigerator to thaw, and then you just place it all on a sheet pan and roast it in the oven, and you have a delicious homemade fajita night in seriously no time at all. So let me show you how I put it all together. I'm gonna be making one for tonight so I can show you how it turned out. And then I'm gonna be doubling the recipe like I always do so that I have one to go in my freezer. So I'm gonna get started with my produce. I, of course, washed everything before I began chopping. Now, since again, I'm doing a double batch, I'm going to slice 6 bell peppers into slices. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cut up 2 onions again into long slices like you'd see in a fajita. Now for your chicken, you're gonna need about 2.5 to 3 pounds of chicken, and you're just gonna wanna go ahead and dice that into small strips. I know sometimes I see chicken or even beef prepared in this fashion already at the grocery store, but again, that can cost a lot more money, so it's definitely more economical to prepare it yourself. It only took me about 5 minutes to kind of chop all this chicken up. I always like to label my freezer bag before I put anything in it. You definitely don't want to end up with any mystery meal in the bottom of your freezer. So once I have the directions on there, I'm just going to go ahead and add in half of the ingredients. So that's the onions, the peppers, half of the chicken too. Now to make things easy, I opted to use a packet of fajita seasoning that I bought at the grocery store. The recipe that I'll link in the description box did have a DIY fajita seasoning mix, and then I also threw in a couple tablespoons of olive oil. So once I give that a really good mix, that can go into the freezer for another night, and then I'm just going to repeat the same process with the other half of the ingredients so I can marinate this before I cook it tonight for dinner. So I'm all done, and here's how everything turned out. I have cookies for now, cookie dough to go in the freezer for later, probably next week, let's be honest. I have fajitas marinating for tonight, fajitas to go in the freezer for another busy night, and then I saved some soup to eat today and tomorrow for lunch, and then I have, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7 individually portioned soup containers to go in the freezer that I can grab, bring to work, have on a busy day when I don't have time to make a homemade lunch. So this honestly did not take me that long. Probably, let's see, like an hour and 15 minutes, start to finish for everything. And I have all this yummy homemade food. And I'm just so excited that another freezer cooking session is on the books. So I want to thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you're new, because again, this is a monthly series, freezer cooking with me. Let's fill our freezers together, make our lives easier, help ourselves out on those busy weeknights when we just don't have time to prepare a healthy homemade meal. So again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on Tuesday with a brand new video. Bye!